Welcome.
Hello, Chip Dippers. It's time for another Quick Bites Apple appetizer. So, quick recap. No, not that kind of recap. We've recapped the boards, cleaned the boards, refurbed the external port, electrocuted ourselves, reflowed the analog solder, reflowed the floppy port solder, asked Jerry for help, swapped the Bourne's filter, had a nervous breakdown, removed the SCSI chip, refurbished 3 floppy drives, tried 2 floppy cables, tried 4 system disks, light brighted the case, and got into therapy. And then this happened. You stupid f***ing piece of shit. That wasn't me swearing, it was Puppyfractic. We made her wash her mouth out with soap and water. And, you know, I really thought that swapping the integrated WAS machine IWM chip was going to solve it, but it wasn't the WAS. You know what I mean? Then finally, thanks to the amazing Floppy Emu, no, not a flightless bird that's gone limp, I finally got this machine to boot for the first time. The fact that the machine is now fully future-proofed and that I have the ability to load any disk I want, virtually, was more than good enough. But I did get suggestions to try that Emu on the internal port. It's a good idea. Let's give it a go. It works, which narrows down our problem to either those 2 floppy cables or the 3 floppy drives, or a completely unrelated problem on the logic board relating to powering the drive motors, which the Emu doesn't have. Maybe that's why it's flightless. But back to that floppy emulator, its creator essentially told me it's time for a new logic board, and faced with the 2 choices of throwing this one in the trash or keeping it alive using the emulator, well, you know me.
Rest in peace, CB. Can't do it.
See, told you know me. But from rest in PCB to trust in PCB way! They've got a great 5th anniversary flash sale on right now, and as we all know, PCB stands for Perifractic Can't Bin It. But stop the press, we've just received this kind donation from eBayer Biff Tannen. Wait. Well, anyway, he sent us this known working yellow stripe floppy cable. You can't use a red stripe SE cable with the Macintosh Plus. That would be ridiculous. So let's see if this gets any of our 3 internal drives working. Well, sadly, Biff's kind donation didn't get us back to the future. I tried all the system disks, I tried all 3 floppy drives. It still didn't work. And you know, I did see comments from people saying you could try 20 floppy Macintosh drives and none of them could work. And we just have to draw a line somewhere. So we're going to keep this machine alive using the floppy Emu. So now we have our working machine. Here's what I've wanted to do with it for many years. You see, back in 1986, my only access to the magical Macintosh was the one owned by my friend Matthew's dad, Philip. Here's Matthew with it. Here's Philip with it. And here's me with a goat. Yeah, I don't have a picture with one. Until now. Anyway, we would spend hours upon weeks just messing around with MacPaint. Back then it was somewhat of a marvel, and the first time ever that you could actually create art in one program, then move it into another, like the equally inspiring MacWrite. Originally called Mac Sketch, MacPaint was written using Pascal and Assembler in 1984, so quite recently then, by Apple's Bill Atkinson. Here's an actual photograph of him. And the interface was designed by Susan Kerr. For me, that woman's touch explains why it was so intuitive to use, and why even Photoshop today borrows from the layout. Naughty Adobe. MacPaint also featured a menu containing all sorts of goodies called aids, but this was soon renamed to goodies. Phew, goody. Now on that system, we created some really cool stuff. I even had this image featured in Mac User magazine, but over the years, that Macintosh was itself put into retirement. We don't know where it is now, but to his credit, Matthew found a way to convert those MacPaint files into bitmap.bmp format. And so I was able to keep them through these past 3 decades. But now I've finally got a working Macintosh again. The thought does arise, wouldn't it be cool to convert them back again into their original format and once again load them onto a real Macintosh with MacPaint? Now that challenge on today's menu isn't as simple as it may seem, and in a second we'll look at the recipe ingredients we need. Don't eat the blue pill, Keanu. These are the recipe ingredients we need. First, capacitors. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong slide. We'll need a real Macintosh. Check. The floppy emulator. Check. The bitmap files. Check. But also some way to convert them. Let me check. And a way to get them onto the virtual MacPaint disk. So thank goodness we went with that emulator, or this would have been a much quicker quick bites. So first thing I'm going to do is take the flash card out of the floppy emulator, put it into my real Macintosh, well not real, futuristic Macintosh, and you can see it mounted there. Then I found this program. It's called Graphic Converter by Lemke Software, and it's the only one that actually has, supposedly, a file format for converting MacPaint files. So I've selected all my bitmap files, and let's start the function. Oh, that was quick, almost too quick, but apparently there they are. Next I'm going to use the emulator Mini VMac running on the modern day Mac. And use this import FI tool, which will allow me to drag and drop files and save them onto the virtual disks. And in this case I'm using the virtual MacPaint disk from the floppy emulator flashcard. But there's a problem. The MacPaint files are not actually showing the MacPaint icon, which means they won't load. And of course, with the Mac, changing the file extension doesn't help either. So if I go to the file info, I can see here the problem. The kind is just document, and the icon is wrong. Try dragging and drop. No. Well, then I found this, Create a Changer 2.8, and it will allow you to click Make Like and make one file like another file. So here I'm choosing a real MacPaint file, and it's going to copy those info attributes across. And you can see now the icon is correct. And as for where to open it, it says MacPaint. Let's try it within VMac emulator, and yes, look at that. For the first time ever, well, in 33 years, these files are kind of running on a Mac. So now I'm going to repeat the process and drag and drop all the other converted .mac files from my real Mac, old new Mac to the emulator, and then convert each one to a MacPaint file type. And there we go. I've got now all the files on this virtual disk. In theory, if I put this in, I should see the same thing. Yep. Let's load up MacPaint. Let's try opening a file. Yes! Oh, look at that. For the first time since probably 1987, 1988, my MacPaint mouse is back on Mac. Wait, who's that? That's not right. Do something about that. Let's check our other files. Fred & Co. hamster cages. Oh yes. This extremely lifelike depiction was done by my friend Matthew, and it's of his old pet hamster. Rest in peace, Hammy. Do you remember the show Take Heart with Tony Hart? Well, let's have a little gallery of our finished conversions. See, Mum, I told you I'd be on TV one day. So there it is, our finished project, the working, future-proofed and restored Apple Macintosh Plus, featuring my original 1986 artwork, Back to Mac. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. It's been quite a ride, hasn't it? But we have many more exciting journeys and delicious retro recipes to come. So make sure you're subscribed, comment below, and cheerio.